Right, on this episode, we're going to talk about media transformation. We're going to share with you actually details of a white paper which will give you some really practical steps about how to approach this. And it's related, I think it was a continuation of a lot of the narrative so far this year, which has been marketers taking a lot more control. We laid out in previous episodes an action plan for media, and last week we talked about different types of control.
That's right. So we identified there were 5 states of control from the far left, which is no control whatsoever, to some advertisers that have taken complete control of media planning and buying in-house. I mean, but I think the thing that interested me most was the middle bit. So the consolidation moving into the post-consolidation kind of state, where the majority of advertisers that we talk to are kind of sitting. These are those advertisers that understand that there is a requirement to control their costs, to drive efficiency, but there is equally an importance about driving effectiveness. So, concentrating, focusing on strategy, the craft of strategic thinking that can balance both efficiency and effectiveness in media.
Exactly right. So, we hear lots of people talk about media transformation. If you go to a conference, there's typically, there'll be a segment about media transformation. We find ourselves talking about media transformation. We thought it would be helpful just to say, well, actually, what is that? What is media transformation? So in our mind, related to that 5-state model, transformation is then what happens after you consolidate your media. So after you've aggregated it into 1 or 2 agencies, after you've driven the costs, in the way that you want, after you've maybe done a race to the bottom on the costs, when you start looking now for where does the effectiveness come from, where does the performance come from, that really is the beginning of a media transformation program. Moving from a race to the bottom to a race to the top.
Absolutely. It's the roadmap to a race to the top. That's what a transformational program is.
Exactly. So what we're sharing with you, we've just published a white paper with WARC, if you're familiar with WARC, which is the World Advertising Research Council. Many of you might be members. If you are, you can download this as part of your membership. The reason that we wrote the white paper was to help explain this. So what this contains is, first off, some quite just simple level setting. So we have definitions of the terminologies around transformation, where to start. So what are the first things you're going to do? We provide a checklist so you can see the milestones you're going to go through. We have a number of case studies or use cases of transformation programs. And together with WARC, we've put together a further reading list. So it's a very kind of practical guide that's going to help you if you're in that consolidation phase and you want to know kind of where to go.
There are 2 key themes within this transformational program, and these are really important, consistent with any advertiser that I think that wants to embrace a transformational program. The first is around changing conventional thinking internally. So moving the narrative away from being overly reliant on your agency partners to bringing more control internally. And that requires, I think, a mandate for change. So that's about changing the narrative internally. And the second thing is addressing structural challenges. When you take greater control in-house, if you like, there needs to be changes within your operating model. Okay, and so focus on making sure that operationally you're effective enough to take back control is really important.
Good. Those are the kind of kickoff points you'll find in the white paper. We go through kind of 9 stages, which are quite simple to follow, but all the way from that first upfront, understanding the lay of the land, if you like, within your business, but then how you gather together the right people, how you determine the right strategies, and then how you would look at applying the resources to kind of go execute that at the end. Right, good week 4.
We have to talk Facebook.
We do. Let's just talk about Facebook. There's a lot to talk about Facebook. You've probably seen the headlines. We'll recap a little bit kind of what's happened. It's been a really challenging year, really, for Facebook. Back in November, we did an episode where we said Facebook has peaked. We looked at kind of 6 areas where we thought they were really challenged. One of those areas was around data and data management. We suspected that people had said it's a sophisticated surveillance operation that had risk, that was going to become a problem for them. The story that's broken this last 7 days is, as you've probably heard, a whistleblower, admission of a data breach, an incredibly slow response by the leadership and management.
But that's astonishing. They heard about the breach in data in 2015.
Yeah.
They didn't inform their investors, they didn't inform their team, they certainly didn't inform the customers that had their data accessed and harvested. Terrible.
Yeah. So that's kind of triggered suddenly a panicked response. As you probably know, the leadership of Facebook didn't say anything for 5 days, and now they've only just recently kind of started to make statements which are somewhat helpful, but they're not a full kind of maybe admission or taking full accountability. There are calls for Mark Zuckerberg, founder and CEO, personally to now attend hearings in front of the US Senate and the UK government as well. Right. So there's incredible pressure on them.
But as a marketeer, you must be pulling your hair out, right? Thinking, not again. The amount of frustration that this must be generating. Just when you thought perhaps that we were moving on from the whole kind of transparency, lack of trust piece, then another catastrophic, question mark over the ability of a leading media platform to operate diligently and properly. And as a marketeer, you're going to have to caveat and justify Facebook's role on a media plan, not for all the wrong reasons. I mean, that would be the reason that I would be absolutely hugely frustrated at the moment with this.
Yeah. And just last week, we were talking about Google and how they had somewhat failed in turning up to questions on the UK government, the Select Committee. You can look at last week's episode, because again, that was another little mini rant from us. You think about Google and Facebook not answering the question, and increasingly questions being raised about how they operate as well. This is, as you know, this is regarded as a duopoly. They're called walled gardens. Marketers have wanted greater access now, and transparency from them. So this is another thing where this is going to break this apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we thought we'd just take a second just to think about some implications. There's a lot of discussion and debate going on, but just about some areas where it might affect media and advertising, and maybe as a marketer, what you might want to start thinking about.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is that customers of Facebook and other platforms will be far more aware of the power of their data.
Yep.
They will be far more cynical, I think, in the way that perhaps advertisers are looking to engage with them, because they'll be paranoid that they're going to look to take this data and use it for other means.
Yeah, but that's quite a good thing, right? So I mean, this is a trigger for consumers generally to understand the trade-off of data, that you get Facebook for free and you give away your data. I don't think people really understood how that might be exploited, and so it may change behaviour. It coincides with in Europe GDPR regulations, which are applying more stringent data management practices. So it comes at a good time, I think, where it's empowering customers to make decisions. Okay. May not be good for advertisers. It certainly won't be good for Facebook and similar people. I think the other implication is that the story, as this broke last week, has been it's about politics. It's about how elections may have been manipulated. It's about how social media weaponized as propaganda and all of that stuff, where it seems to be shifting now the discussion, which is bad for all of us perhaps, is that there's likely to be somewhat of a consumer backlash, not against political advertising, but against advertising.
Yeah, that's right.
Because all this stuff, this data mining, high precision targeting, these aren't political techniques. These are advertising techniques. Facebook's skill at this stuff and others has been developed for advertisers.
Yeah, but how will that impact on advertisers, right? Will they continue to spend on Facebook? I'm sure the trade bodies, ANA, ISBA here in the UK, are going to be asking Facebook some really, really difficult questions on behalf of their members. Okay. Now, in the way that we saw money being withdrawn from YouTube last year, it'll be interesting to see how advertisers react with their investment levels, with their money on Facebook.
Yeah. So, where people have come to us for advice in the last 7 days and kind of thinking about how they might think about this, our advice to marketers generally has been, use this as an opportunity. It sounds maybe a bit callous, but Facebook are vulnerable. Facebook are distracted. They're having to answer to higher powers, to governments.
That's right.
It's the perfect opportunity to go and press your case with Facebook to get data, greater transparency, to get greater value out of Facebook. Renegotiate your terms. All advertisers generally have wanted to break down the walled gardens, to be able to allow third-party verification of these systems. This is a great time to start negotiating, because what Facebook don't want is for some high-profile advertisers to start walking out the door. Those are bad headlines.
They're likely to be far more compliant now, is what we're saying. And if advertisers do take the money, where do you think that money will be reinvested?
It's a really good question. So it could... I think automatically in the past it might have shifted to Google, Snapchat. I think Oath are likely to benefit as the money kind of trickles maybe down elsewhere. If money shifts out, and we're kind of hearing rumours of marketers considering their position and maybe pulling out. There's been lots of discussion about some traditional media maybe benefiting from this. After the fallout of Google's inaction on brand safety, or perceived inaction on brand safety, continuing data and measurement challenges of Facebook. Is there the trust in this duopoly that there was before? Well, perhaps marketers start to rethink about where money should be applied.
But I suppose the big challenge for Facebook is this a real turning point in the health of their business, right? As consumers post less, get less involved, as advertisers perhaps invest less money, will Facebook be as valuable and as trusted as a platform as it has been in the past?
Yeah. This is a pivotal moment. Facebook's users are, as we said in our previous episode, right, about looking at Facebook. Facebook is kind of, they've hit somewhat saturation in developed markets. Okay, their user base is getting older. Older users will tend to be a little bit more privacy aware. That's the behaviours that they've shown. So, older users of Facebook, in their 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond, will see these kind of headlines and will probably likely to post less, trust Facebook less, share less, upload less, and that means less data for Facebook, which is what they monetize. Facebook have said they're going to apply more stringent rules on data so it can be used less. So what we're going to see is Facebook being able to offer less to advertisers in terms of access to data on less data, because I think actually users will share less over time now. And that is going to potentially diminish the value of Facebook to advertisers, which in turn, given that it's a 98% advertising funded business, will diminish the value of Facebook. Right, question of the week. Are you planning for media transformation?
Yes, no, whatever.
Okay, so please leave comments down below. If you like what we're doing, give us a thumbs up and do subscribe for further updates. But that is your media snack for this week. Thank you for watching.
See you next time. Am I rambling?
No, that's good. That's really good. Keep going.
Sorry, you were looking at me and I was like...
No, I'm just waiting to kind of pick up. Right, question of the week. Oh no, I need to ask it. What is it? What's the question of the week?